कुन ठाउँको सुकुम्बासीको बारेमा रिसर्च गर्नुभयो, थेसिस गर्नुभयो?
पाकमाचीमा
एक बागमतीको किनारमा भएको बस्ती?
बस्तीमा होइन, यो बस्ती यो खोलामा।
काठमाडौँमा त यता बालाजु, शङ्खमूल, थापाथलीमा नि छन् नि सुकुम्बासीहरू।
खास रिसर्चमा त नाम भन्नु हुँदैन,
हजुर,
किनभने जब यो मान्छेहरूको यो इन्टरभ्यू पनि लियो अनि मान्छे नाम त पनि भन्नु हुँदैन, एनोनिमिटी गर्नुपर्छ तर सेन्ट्रली खोलामा होइन। म मेरो लेखमा रामाघाट भन्छु, तर यो त रियल नेम होइन।
ए हजुर,
यो सुरुनेम।
हजुर। अनि अब सुनाउनुहोस् न त, अब सुकुम्बासीको बारेमा हजुरले के जान्नुभयो, के थाहा पाउनुभयो?
खोइ सुकुम्बासी भन्छ छिनफुस्तमा घर जग्गा केही पनि छैन।
हजुर।
अनि म यो ठाउँमा 94देखि म आएको।
ए हजुर।
अनि यो बेला त सबै सानो सानो झुपडीमा बसेको होइन, त्यस्तो काठ पेपर सबै यो केही पनि होइन बनाएको होइन यो। अनि अहिले त 30 वर्ष लाग्यो होइन। अनि अहिले त कोही यो घर अहिले पनि बस्छ, अनि अरू त ठुलो घर बनाएको होइन। अनि हुकुमबासी पनि भन्छ,
एकदम हुकुमबासी पनि भन्छ।
तर मेरो विचारमा यो कोहीको त पक्का सुकुम्बासी होइन,
कोही पक्का सुकुम्बासी
उनीहरू पनि छन् होइन। अनि त्यसैले पहिलादेखि फियर थियो, उचाउँछ कहिले कोही सर्कले आउँछ उचाउँछ, यो ठाउँ त कहिले पनि उचाएको छैन, तर अरू ठाउँ उचाएको। अनि त्यस्तो फियर त एकदम गाह्रो छ बस्न। It's difficult to live with that kind of anxiety all the time.
Yeah.
And it's, my opinion, it's really necessary to differentiate between, because there are some who are really, really genuinely poor
and are सुकुम्बासी।
केही पनि छैन होला, सानो जग्गा छ गाउँमा, तर बच्चाहरूलाई खुवाउनेलाई स्कुलमा पठाउनु पुग्दैन। अरू त पैसा बनाएको, पैसा कमाएको, अनि घर पनि पालमा दिन्छ होइन, अर्को खोजा पनि छ होला, तर एकदम फरक। It's very different. There's a huge difference between people. अनि त्यसैले सबै यो उठाउनुको कुरा सरकारको यो कहाँ बचाउनु, मतलब Kathmandu has a huge problem in terms of housing.
Yeah.
And no proper housing rights, no proper possibilities for people to go and live elsewhere. So कहाँ जाने होइन, यो पहिला मिलाउनु पर्छ, त्यसपछि हुन्छ हुनु। तर यो मान्छेहरू त उचाउँछ भने कहाँ जान्छ, पैसा छैन भने, जग्गा छैन भने होइन।
तर यो सुकुम्बासी बस्ती पहिला एकचोटि एउटा नेताको पालामा, बाबुराम भट्टराईको पालामा, तर बागमतीको किनारको होइन, अर्को ठाउँको सुकुम्बासीलाई चाहिँ त्यहाँबाट हटाएर त्यहाँ लगेर राख्ने भन्ने कुरा भएको थियो। तर त्यस्तै भयो, उहाँहरू पनि मान्नु भएन। एन्ड बिकज दे डिडन्ट वान्ट टु गो देयर, एन्ड त्यही भएर।
But that was outside Kathmandu, far away, wasn't it?
No, it's inside Kathmandu.
Okay.
Yeah. अनि अहिले Balen tried to remove them from there, but he couldn't.
धेरै झगडा भयो।
धेरै झगडा भयो। हेर्नुहुन्छ बालेनको अलिअलि न्युजहरू?
म युट्युबमा छ होइन, यो जुलुस पनि थियो होइन, अनि एकदम झगडा पनि भयो,
वेपनहरू पनि देखाएर। हजुर।
Well, the problem is, I think, actually I read a quite interesting article yesterday about, that was actually kind of portraying and Balen and writing about all the initiatives that he has taken. And I think part of this is very much on the surface. So it means it's easy to go and clean up the street, to throw away vendors, to evict sukumbasi, to do all this. It's kind of cleaning the floor. But if you don't tackle the root causes,
of course,
which is poverty. Of course, as I said before, there's huge difference between people who within the communities. But I mean, if you don't manage to identify, well, and I think we do, I don't know what a lot, it is poverty related for many, and a lack of proper housing policies and so on. So in that sense, I think if you just throw people away, they'll just rise somewhere else. So, and in that sense, it's very different from, for example, homeless people in Denmark, many of whom are, a lot of those are psychologically sick, seriously. I mean, it's other problems of it might be drug addicts or alcoholics and so on. So it's a different sort of problems. Of course, there's poverty in Denmark too, but not nearly the extent as in Nepal. And I think one big difference, and that has taken many, many decades here, but is that we have a very strong tax system.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people here complain about paying too much in tax. And I always say I love to pay my tax, because I think that's what actually gives the safety net that a lot of people in Nepal don't have. If they have money themselves, they can go to India for treatment, they can send their kids to the most expensive schools, they can do anything. If you don't, you are left to a public system,
in a corner,
a public system that is in very bad shape. And I think that's a strong and efficient tax system. I mean, it's the foundation for the welfare society, actually.
Do you think they are all real Sukumbasi?
Well, I mean, when I started working there in 94, most people had come within the last 3-4 years or something. They had all come from surrounding districts to Kathmandu. Many had lived for rent before, and then they started
moving there
and settling and building these small shacks. And one of an often stated reason for doing so was that housing, it was so difficult to find housing. They had no rights on the housing market. It was very expensive. They could be kicked out from one day to another. So it was very different to maintain a living for rent. And they felt that, first of all, I mean, of course it cost some money to mobilize a home there, to make it in the first place. But they felt that they had more control over the housing situation. So I think that's another aspect, that you can actually build your own space and you're not, I mean, this being reliant on a landlord who can kick you out without any notice made it a very vulnerable situation. So they actually preferred to live in these kind of pretty vulnerable areas, because it is a vulnerable area.
Yeah, of course.
And it is not, I mean, the riverbanks are not meant for human living, because there are recurrent floods every year. Everything gets spoiled. People, I mean, once one of the children was taken by the flood, drowned. I mean, so it happens, and people get sick. I mean, all the water. I mean, there's horribly dirty water, so it's really bad for the health situation too. So there are many reasons why one shouldn't stay that particular place. But on the other hand, as long as there are no proper alternatives, it's really difficult. But of course, what I've seen over the now soon 30 years is that some people are stuck in the same position. They haven't been able to expand their houses. They're still living on very low subsistence. But others some have been able to completely leave the area and build houses outside, and it was just kind of periodically, they had a crisis in their life, they went there, stayed there for some years, but actually managed to leave it again. And yet others have built these huge houses, and you do find very big houses there too. And no, I don't think they are pakka Sukumbasi. But there are, and I think that's very important, that they're not, that, I mean, also politically, that there's will to actually differentiate.
Some people have big houses. They are renting them, but still living there because they want that land, you know.
Yeah.
Because the government is planning to give land to them who are real Sukumbasi.
Exactly.
So they are acting like real Sukumbasi because before some months ago, Balen was trying to remove those Sukumbasi.
Yeah.
And the situation was worst. Like people are even, you know, kukuri. Yeah, people even have kukuri, and they are like behind police and everything. Yeah. So what do you think should be done to manage slum Sukumbasi? Because you have seen the government system of Denmark. And how do government manage homeless or Sukumbasi here in Denmark, and how can we manage it in Nepal?
Well, we don't have Sukumbasi in the same way. I mean, but I think as long there has to be some alternatives. I mean, and as long as the government is not able to present some proper alternatives to people and actually relocate them to places where there's a safe living, it's difficult. And they have been threatening for the last since the first day I got there. I actually the very first day I came to the area in '94, it had flooded. There was a flood.
Okay.
And people were desperate.
Yeah.
And these floods were recurrent, but also the threat of being evicted. And they have been going on for 30 years, soon 30 years.
Yeah.
All these, and nothing has happened. So the government hasn't, I mean, even though they come now and then, they kick them away, and they're not able to manage it because they're not given proper alternatives, and also because the root causes in terms of poverty are not solved.